Let's take a look at how we can auto-craft rockets. We could always use a generic 2-item crafter. Simply load in our paper and our gunpowder, and it would craft away. But that's not necessarily ideal. We could make one that auto-crafts sugarcane into paper for us. That way, we could connect this directly to any farm that produces gunpowder, and then just simply load in some sugarcane for it to start crafting. Or we could even attach it to a sugarcane farm as well and fully automate the entire process. Best of all, this is fully protected, meaning that if any of the items back up too much or run out, it will automatically turn itself off so that it never messes up the pattern or anything like that. I've also been attempting to design a simple and efficient one that is compatible with bones, meaning that if you load in bones, it will turn it into meal and then meal some sugarcane. This concept is derivative of my rocket farm. That was an attachment that we added to a regular mob farm, since that farm produces bones and gunpowder at the same time. This design has its own tutorial, so you can check that out, but for this one, we're going to build the sugarcane version, not the bone version. The build area is 6 by 7, and we're going to dig down 1 on the leftmost row, and then dig out 3 blocks on the back left side. Our storage chest is going to be here in the front, in the middle, and we could always add more chests and hoppers going down if we want to store more rockets. But we want a crafter whose face is pressed right up against the topmost storage chest, and we want hoppers pointed into both sides of this crafter. Then 3 solid blocks behind these, with a repeater pointed forward into the middle one, and a comparator on each side of that pointed toward the back. Then we want 5 blocks coming out of these in this claw shape, with an observer facing toward the back in the center, looking at a dropper, where you could use a redstone lamp or a powered rail instead of the dropper. But we want redstone torches on each side of that middle one, then a repeater down here in this hole pointed at a solid block that is below the dropper, rail, or lamp. Then redstone dust in this hole from the repeater over to the front, a comparator that is looking at the topmost rocket chest, with a second comparator pointed into the side of the first one, being powered by a redstone torch. Then a solid block coming out of the first comparator directly above the dust. Now on top of these hoppers, we want to place a barrel, with hoppers pointed down to the tops of these barrels, and double chests on top of these skewed off to the right, so that we can place a third double chest right here, so all of these chests are touching. Now on the back, we want to place solid blocks behind that hopper, above that comparator, behind that barrel, and above that comparator. 3 dust on each side in these positions, with a repeater next to this dust pointed into the hopper, like so. Now we want a crafter pointed up directly next to that repeater right there. Then a hopper above the repeater pointed into the middle chest, then a hopper pointed into that hopper above the crafter. So the crafter spits up and over into the middle chest. Then lock the top 6 slots inside of this crafter, because this is the paper crafter. Now we want a solid block diagonally down from the crafter and over by 1, then 4 more blocks diagonally back from those, with a comparator in this hole that is looking at this crafter pointed into the block in the back, then dust next to that comparator and looping around like so. Then a repeater in this hole pointed forward, then a solid block next to the crafter and above that dust, with dust on top of those 2. And it should start clocking, turning on and off. So we want a block diagonally down from that one, with a comparator pointed into the front block, looking at a crafter that has all 9 slots locked. Or this could be anything that has a strength of 9. But that should turn off the clock so that the redstone is no longer turning on and off. But we're going to place a solid block here in the middle next to that one, with a comparator on top of that looking at that middle chest, with a second comparator pointed into the side of that one, looking at a crafter that has all 9 slots locked, or anything that has a strength of 9. Now we want solid blocks coming out of that comparator and looping over here to that dust, with 3 dust on top of those, connecting it together. And finally, we want a hopper underneath this left chest pointed into the crafter. And we can go ahead and label this. So the leftmost chest is for sugarcane, the middle chest will be for paper, and then the rightmost chest will be for gunpowder. After we label the chests, inside of this crafter right here, we need to lock all but 2 of the slots and load in paper and gunpowder so that it's ready to craft rockets. Now it won't actually start crafting until this crafter is totally full and items back up into both of the hoppers feeding that crafter. So it won't start activating until there is a full stack of paper and gunpowder plus 23 paper and gunpowder in these feeding hoppers. And when we load in materials to be crafted, we can only load them in from the topmost chests. Do not put those items in the barrels or in the hoppers, only in the topmost chests. But for sugarcane, we can just toss that into the leftmost chest and it will automatically craft the paper and load it into the middle. And all of this is protected. If it gets too full of rockets or too full of paper, it will turn itself off. Or if it starts to run out of paper or gunpowder, it will turn itself off. Because crafters aren't very smart. They don't know when to stop. So if it got completely full of paper and the paper started backing up to the crafter, eventually the crafter would just start pooping paper on the ground. Same way with rockets. Crafters don't know when to stop, so if they push into a full container, they poop their item on the ground. Now the rocket chest specifically, we actually might want to tweak something, because as it is, it only locks itself when the chest is full. And so it could poop a couple of rockets on the ground when the chest fills up completely. It will only poop out a couple of rockets, so it's not a huge deal. But to resolve this, all we have to do is move this torch and comparator backwards by 2 blocks. So we're going to place the torch right there next to those blocks, and then place our comparator looking at that torch next to the existing comparators. So it's now 2 blocks away from the front comparator, which we're going to place 2 dust connecting those together, and then place solid blocks above this dust to pinch it so the dust is no longer connected. We just lowered the signal strength by 1, so now the front comparator will activate when that chest is missing about 4 stacks of rockets, rather than when it's totally full. So now the chest can never fill up, so it will never waste any rockets. But like I mentioned near the beginning of the video, what I actually like doing is attaching this directly to a farm that produces gunpowder, either by using a cascade of chests so that all the gunpowder flows down, or by using standard stacked chests, where the bottom chest fills up first. Either way, I like having my gunpowder storage be right here. So if I need to make TNT, I can just pull out the gunpowder. Whereas if I need rockets, I can just load in some sugarcane. Or build a small, simple sugarcane farm directly attached to the sugarcane chest at the gunpowder farm. That way, as you AFK for gunpowder, you're also AFKing the sugarcane. So it's crafting rockets while you're AFK. Even a teeny tiny itty bitty sugarcane farm would be more than enough for rockets. Like even just 10 or 20 sugarcane is totally fine. Because we also want to be aware of how much gunpowder we're turning into rockets if we want to craft TNT. If you don't want to craft TNT, then it doesn't matter at all. But if you do, we need to control the amount of gunpowder being used into rockets, either by changing our gunpowder storage, limiting our rocket storage, or bottlenecking the sugarcane. But that's all we got for this episode. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, share, and subscribe. But always remember that you are totally awesome. And above all, don't forget to have fun. Bye-bye.